All right, guys. How are you? I haven't seen you guys in literally, it's been probably, I don't know, a month or more. New haircut, no hat, trimmed beard. You probably don't even recognize me, but it's been quite a while since I've even filmed. Just been busy with work, and then also ended up getting really sick. So that's fun. We're starting today with some shoulders and arms. I'll walk you through it like always. We're starting here with forearms. I don't know if I've showed you forearms yet, but the great thing about this, if your gym has this machine, it's awesome because it's for forearms, so it's extremely convenient and efficient at training the forearms. If not, everything I'm doing today, you can do with dumbbells or barbells. It really doesn't matter. The concept is the exact same. We're literally just doing wrist curls this way, wrist curls this way. So what we're starting with here is we're gonna be doing wrist curls in this position right here with a supinated grip to start. Now you're gonna be stronger in this position regardless, so you can actually go heavier. That being said, if you're not used to training your forearms, I highly recommend, ease into it. Start light. Reason being is you're dealing with the wrist joint. You don't want to overstimulate that. You don't want to overstimulate some of the tendons that run through there. So you don't want to go crazy heavy right off the bat if you're not used to training your forearms, especially if you suffer with, tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. This is perfect for that. But if you are dealing with that, I highly recommend, like I said, ease into it. So what I mean by that is pick a lighter weight and just focus on getting full range of motion through your wrist, through extension and flexion when you're performing these movements at a lighter weight at higher rep ranges. So like aim for 15 to 20 reps. And your whole goal is to just push as much blood into your forearms as possible. That's pretty much it. Still, we're going to failure today. I'm aiming for lower rep ranges, somewhere between that 8 to 12 rep, and ideally failing around that, 8 or 12 rep, depending on how many reps we get. So I'm gonna walk you through that form. I've already done 2 working sets. This is gonna be my final set here. I'm doing 3. I'm going pretty heavy, 120 pounds on this. I'm doing it in a supinated grip first, and then we'll do it pronated as well. Now for the form, what I really want you focusing on is keeping your elbow planted against this pad the entire time. I do not want you doing this sort of rocking movement like this, where you're depressing your shoulder, elevating and then depressing your shoulders to initiate that sort of first couple inches of the actual rep. That's just cheating. You're not getting the most out of the movement. You want to be locked in. You want to be super strict and rigid on this. And you're really only focused on driving your wrists up as high as possible, but not just up rather, but also in. Because if you think of up, that's when you're doing this movement. You're just thinking of a direction of the actual handle as opposed to the actual path of your wrist. So instead of up, I want you thinking about pulling in towards you. Now, as you come down, you really want to focus on rolling out onto your fingertips. A lot of the time people just stop here, okay? But your fingers also add to part of this sort of wrist flexion and extension. In terms of strengthening a lot of these tendons and muscles in here, you have to fully roll out onto your fingers. They all attach through here. So you want to roll out onto your fingertips and then initiate that rep by rolling your fingers in as you roll and pull your wrists in. So full range coming all the way down, stretch, squeeze. Now lastly too, if you notice, my wrists aren't hanging too far over top. I really want to create as much surface area with this pad and my forearm, so I'm keeping literally just where my wrist bends, I'm keeping that part literally just hanging off. I want as much stability as possible in this movement. I don't want to have my wrist hanging off this far. 2 things. 1, that's going to put a shit ton of stress, especially as you get heavier, on these bones. And it kind of grosses me out. It makes me think I'm going to break them. Probably not, but still a lot of stress. And then you have less surface area, so you're more inclined to be rocking in the movement on this sort of pivot point underneath your arm. So you want to kind of eliminate that, keep your wrists tucked in as much as possible on that pad, keep as much of your forearm on that pad, and then again, coming all the way down onto your fingertips and then rolling all the way up in towards you, squeezing your forearms as hard as possible. Again, keeping that elbow against that pad the entire time. I can't stress that enough. We're including partials as well. Okay. So now I'm going to be doing more of a pronated grip with some wrist extension. And I'm going to go lighter on these because you're not going to be as strong in this position. Exact same concept. I'm keeping my arms bent. Now, there's no necessarily right or wrong way to do this. You can do it straight arm. I like doing it straight arm sometimes because this allows me to target a bit more of this end range, or where I have peak contraction. I'm still going to be loading primarily that. Whereas when I'm down here, some of that resistance does tend to dip off. Doesn't even make any sense. Fall off. So you're kind of loaded primarily in this more neutral or mid position, and into the lengthened position as well when you're in this bent arm, elbow flexed position. So you can do it straight, but if you do it straight, keep your arm locked in position. If you're doing it bent, again, keep your arm locked in this position the entire time, the exact same form as you did the first time with the wrist curls. Okay, that's it. We're gonna move on. That's it for forearms. Enough about that shit. I just went on for like 20 minutes about that. We're gonna go on to Smith machine. We're gonna do some Smith machine shoulder press and then get into some triceps on the Smith machine as well. We're gonna do JM press where I'll show you that as well. But enough talking, let's get to it. We'll catch up because it's been a long damn long time. Can't even talk today. Can never talk. Okay, starting with Smith machine shoulder press. I just did a little warm up. We'll probably pyramid up in the weight for the working sets. What did I write down? I think we're doing 3 working sets here. Gotta check. 2, I lied. We're doing 2 working sets here, but I'm probably gonna, because this is the very first exercise and it's a compound movement, probably gonna do 2 warm-up sets. So I just did 1, throw a plate on. I'll take the 25s off, throw a plate on, do another warm-up set, and then finish off with 2 working sets right to failure. Push it as much as I can. I'm using the Smith machine today. I like it. I feel good. Now, in terms of my setup, one thing I want you thinking about is making sure that the bench is centered perfectly. I know that's self-explanatory, but one quick way to know if it's centered is you just, well, you wouldn't have weight on because it's going to be difficult, but it's not that heavy. But you're basically just going to drop this bar down. I didn't realize these safeties are here. I'm all over the place today, guys. But anyways, you're going to drop this bar down. You can actually just bring this bench up and make sure that the gap between the knurling and the smooth part on each side of this pad is pretty much even, okay? That's how you know it's going to be centered. And then you're just going to adjust the depth or the distance. For the distance, obviously that's going to be individualized between each person depending on your body shape and structure. But basically you want to try to have this bar path as close to your chin as possible. So be careful because you don't want to hit or clip your chin. You don't want to be moving your head around much in the movement where you run the risk of hitting yourself. But also you don't want to have this too far in front either. So you want to kind of have it where you're in this sort of upper chest, right below your clavicle region. Somewhere in this vicinity is completely fine. But again, it's going to be different for each of you. This is just a ballpark to get you guys started, and then you can adjust it accordingly to what feels right for you. If you want the bench further back, that's fine. You're just going to have to be cognizant of that and probably tuck your elbows in a lot more like this, which if that feels better for you, that's fine. You're still going to be targeting a lot of those front delts. Now, for my warm-ups, naturally, I'm not going to failure. The reason being is, I mean, it's a warm-up. We're not, like, this isn't a working set. All right. Keeping that chest up, control every single rep. I know, again, this is a warm-up, but still, I treat it like a working set. Elbows slightly tucked in. I want to make sure that my joints are stacked, so my elbow is stacked directly underneath my wrist. And I'm literally just thinking about driving biceps in towards my ears or my chin. Okay. Easy peasy. Okay, we're gonna go heavy. 2 plates, first working set. I actually don't remember the last time I did this. 225. It's not, is it 225 on a Smith machine? I don't know. You guys let me know. I say it is. 225 overhead press. First set. Aiming for, I don't know, we'll see how many we get. Worst case is I don't do it and I completely fail and the video's a write-off and then that's it. No, worst case is I just do like 3 or 4 reps, not sets, and I'm fine with that. We'll just lower the weight then if that's the case, but I want to try to aim for 6 to 8, failing around that. Because again, I'm only doing 2 working sets here. I'm just gonna get right into it. I already did the 2 warm-up sets, so I'm feeling pretty warmed up. We'll see what we get. Oh. That was good. I probably had one more, but I'm stopping. I guess I'm stopping 1 to 2 reps shy. I don't really want to fail on that. Oh. We'll see. Maybe the next set I will. Still regaining my energy from being sick. But that felt good. I'm actually pretty happy with that. 8 reps. Not bad. Last thing, I have the bench on an angle back because it just feels better for me. If I'm too upright, 1, I'm more likely gonna have to be arching and hyperextending my back to actually have some sort of range of motion to get around my head because this is on a fixed path. So I like to have this bench angled slightly back. Now, some of you are gonna be like, yeah, but that's gonna target a bit more upper pec, for sure. And that's completely fine too. But I'm still, because I'm on such a high incline, I'm still gonna be targeting mainly my shoulders. So don't worry about, you know, all the nuances and little details of like, oh, but if I go back this far, I might not be able to hit just my shoulders and I'm gonna get more, it's like, who cares? Just whatever feels comfortable. I always say, if it's comfortable and you like doing it, you're gonna be able to push yourself a lot further than if you have some setup because someone online told you to have it that way. And I fall victim to this because I do post content that tells you how to properly form. You need to friggin' create content to properly form sentences. To properly execute movement with proper form. But it's not the be all or end all. This isn't set necessarily in stone. One thing I like to actually tell my clients too, when it comes to form and it comes to training is, and this might be a weird example, but it's almost like when you're a kid and you're in elementary school and you learn how to write. When you learn handwriting for the first time, when you're in, you know, grade 1 or kindergarten, and you have to write every letter perfectly within the 2 lines, and you got to write A, B, right? You're going down the whole alphabet. Well, as you get older, you don't write like that. You don't write every single letter perfectly. I mean, you may, but my point is for the point of the example is as you get older, your handwriting starts to evolve. You learn the basics, you have structure in school to learn how to properly write, but then over time, your handwriting becomes unique to you. And the same thing goes with form is, yes, you have to standardize it. There is a format, that you have to follow right away, and you're going to be strict. You're going to be rigid at first, but you're not going to go your whole career of training in this strict and rigid form forever. Over time, you're going to learn, okay, maybe I tweak my position in this way. This feels better for me this way. So over time, just like your handwriting evolves, your form evolves to best suit you as well. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. It's a weird example, but it's something that to me makes sense, is that over time, your form definitely can evolve. You can have body English, you can move through the movement. You don't have to be so strict and rigid all the time, but there is a time and a place for both. So anyways, enough talking. We got one more working set here. And this one, we are gonna go right to failure. I'm gonna push it all the way, the full way to failure. Probably stopping somewhere around here. Great thing is we're on the Smith, so I can just hook it. Okay, last one. That's it. Okay, so we're starting with, for triceps, we're doing JM press. The JM press is basically, think of as a close grip bench press mixed with a skull crusher. So I'm using it on the Smith because I like the fixed path. I can solely focus on, extending at the elbow, squeezing, and then driving down, stretching. I don't have to worry about any sort of spatial awareness of where I want that bar. I can keep it and maintained in a fixed path the entire time. That's why I like using it on the Smith for this specific movement. But you can still do this on barbell or even dumbbell. Okay. It's a little light, a little easy. Throw on a 25 now for the second set. In terms of the triceps, what does this target exactly? Because it is a compounding movement, meaning I'm not keeping my elbow fixed in a position. I'm allowing a bit of shoulder extension and definitely shoulder flexion as I extend that arm up. So because this upper part of my arm is kind of moving through the movement, the length, so to speak, of the long head of the tricep, it's not in a fixed position. So I am actually going to be targeting, or biasing rather, a bit more of the lateral and medial head of the tricep. That's why this is actually a great movement if you want to target more of the lateral. I'll show you this tricep because it's my better one, my better side. You'll target a bit more of that lateral head here, and then more of the medial head through here as well. The long head is this big guy back here. So you're not really going to be targeting as much, but the great thing is if you want to target all three heads, just keep your elbows in a locked, more elevated position the entire time. So you're just doing this, but then it turns into basically like a skull crusher. So you're trading off the actual benefit of the movement, which, you are still going to be targeting some of those shoulder muscles by allowing shoulder extension and flexion. And by extension, I just mean my upper arm is going to be coming down and back. And then as I press, I'm getting shoulder flexion. This upper part of my arm is coming up in the movement. That's heavy. Yeah, that's a good weight. We're gonna stay there. Third and final set. So for the form now, same thing in terms of the setup of the actual bench. Just make sure that it is perfectly aligned underneath this bar the entire time. So same thing as I said, you're gonna lower this bar down, make sure that the knurling on each side is even and this bench is centered. Next, in terms of depth and how far back or forward you want the bench, well, you want the bar path to be somewhere in this region here. So somewhere, sorry, I'm like going all the way down here. You want it somewhere in here. No, you want it somewhere around like your upper pec to your mouth. So somewhere in this region, whatever's comfortable. It's going to be different for everybody because we all have different lever lengths, right? Some people's forearms or arms in general might be super long. So you might actually get more benefit from it coming down more towards your face, almost like a skull crusher. Or you may have shorter arms and you might feel it more coming down towards, you know, your upper pec region. Whatever's comfortable. I like to keep it around chin or neck or mouth. Somewhere in here is usually what feels fine for me in terms of bar path. Now, grip. I'm just getting up because talking and looking at you guys, it's hard. I can feel the blood rushing into my head. Grip width is going to be slightly wider than shoulder width or roughly shoulder width. Again, find what's comfortable for you and what feels right. I don't want your elbows to have to be tucked in. You're not tucking elbows in the whole time, but you're also not flaring them out like a close grip bench press either. You're just kind of keeping them in this sort of slight flared, slightly tucked. Again, whatever's comfortable, guys. Doesn't have to be so set in stone. So I'm keeping elbows naturally in this sort of angled out position because that's what feels comfortable for me. Now the main goal for this is a hybrid between a close grip bench and a skull crusher, like I mentioned. So I am not keeping elbows elevated the entire time like this. I'm allowing my elbows to dip down. However, I don't want to go into too much extension in my shoulder where I then become into this close grip, because then I'm just doing a close grip bench press. So I'm still focused on keeping elbows elevated. And one thing I like to make sure of is I'm just trying to keep almost like my forearm in this end range or lengthened position here, parallel with the ground. So I'm just keeping my elbows slightly elevated, a little higher than my wrist maybe, or at least aligned with my torso. And then as I press, I'm actually thinking about pulling and extending my biceps in towards me, squeezing my triceps. And then on that negative, I'm pushing elbows away from me. So elbows come away and then pulling elbows in, squeezing. That's it. That's all I'm thinking of. Okay, last set. Last set. And you don't have to go down too deep. Just go down as whatever's comfortable for you in terms of depth. So again, you're just going down until your elbows are still elevated, but compressed. Elbows away, and then pulling elbows in, extending, squeezing that tricep. Okay, that's it. Now, for those of you who have never done a JM press, start light, work through the movement, get the proper form down, get the feeling of it down, because it can be pretty stressful and straining on your elbows. If you get elbow pain, that's common, but the more you do it, the stronger the tissues get, and the more used to it you're actually going to get. I always say, if you notice some sort of joint pain right away, it's not inherently wrong. It might just not, it might just be that you're not used to training in that range or in that extreme of a range. So start light, start with no weight even, and just focus on getting that depth, getting that range. And then over time, the stronger you get, you're actually going to be strengthening those extreme ranges. It's actually better for you long term, because then if you ever are doing an exercise and you slip into an extreme range, you're more likely going to be less prone to injury because you're already strong sort of in that position. So anyways, start slow, start light, and focus on form if you've never done it before. And if you get a bit of elbow pain, that is common, but be cognizant of it. If it's too much, pull back, probably not worth doing. That was working set number 1. We're doing dumbbell lateral raises, obviously. 3 working sets here. And I think on the last set, we're gonna do a drop set, probably 2 lighter drops after. So 3 total sets for that final set, just to switch things up, throw in a bit more volume for my mid delts. I've been kind of not slacking on them, but I could be better at it in terms of consistency, especially because, like I mentioned earlier, I changed up my split. So on my chest and back days, I don't do any mid delts. So I only actually train them once a week. Before I was doing higher frequency for them, but I took a break because, like I mentioned countless times in my videos, that my right shoulder was really bugging me. So it feels better since I've taken a break and since I was sick. So I've been actually thrusted into a break. But we're gonna just try to get in a bit more volume in one day. And then slowly over the course of the weeks, as the split progresses, maybe I'll up the frequency a bit and throw them on like a chest and back day or even a leg day. I mean, I've mentioned this before as well. When it comes to your splits, there is no right or wrong split. There is no most optimal or best split out there. It's honestly what works best for you. What is a split that you can commit to? And what is a split that you actually enjoy doing when you come into the gym? Again, like anything, like in exercise, if you hate doing it, and just as an exercise, if you hate the actual day that you're training and you're like, oh, you got to do this, you're not going to push yourself. You're already checking yourself out. So just focus on structuring a workout, doing exercises that you actually enjoy doing, that you get excited to do, or at least at the very least, they are comfortable enough for you to push yourself through to the point to actually progress. So let's go a bit heavier. Second set. Now, in terms of the actual rep range, I don't really care for these. I say that, I have an idea in my mind. Again, I'm hanging around that 8 to 12, but it's not like I'm dedicated to a specific number of reps for these. I feel like everything today, I'm just keeping it simple. You know, pulling things back and just focusing on, all right, as long as I get 8 to 12, somewhere in there for most of my movements, cool. Maybe the more isolated stuff, you know, certain bicep movements, maybe I'll do higher reps if it's machines, but we're gonna keep things pretty basic. Now, as always, I've explained, I'm using these straps. I highly recommend using them for dumbbell lateral raises. I do find they make a difference. Your grip does not become a limiting factor. I had someone actually, he asked me on Instagram, he's like, I don't see how my hands would become a limiting factor when I'm doing lateral raises, when I was specifically talking about a cable variation of using cuffs or even the D handle and wrapping it around your hand as opposed to just gripping it. In short, your hand becomes a limiting factor because your grip strength. He didn't understand it because he thought my grip is always going to be stronger than my mid delt because I can pretty much hold more weight than my mid delt could lift, which, yeah, that makes total sense. But when you're dealing with momentum and actual movement, your grip over time will start to weaken as your mid delts get stronger. So holding a weight in your hand straight down like this, yeah, you could hold it a lot longer than holding it out here when you're relying on now your fingertips to mainly hold that. So you're actually dealing with, not only are you dealing with levers in your body, but you're dealing with the tiny little levers and the moment arms, so to speak, of your actual hand. And over time, or in different positions, grip is going to be vastly different. So my grip out here is going to be vastly different than my grip down here. Over here, it's going to be a lot harder to hold over time than it is right here, if that makes sense. So your grip can become a limiting factor as your mid delts get stronger, as you want to push more weight. And that's why I do think it is crucial to actually use things like cuffs, wrap the D handle around your hand if you're on cables, or use these wrist wraps at the very least if you're doing dumbbells and you are noticing you're getting a lot stronger quickly and you notice your grip does start to kind of give out. Don't be against them. A lot of people are against them, but because they think like it's like, what's the point? You need to get strong grip anyways. It's like, that's not the point. The point of the movement is to stimulate the mid delt. I'm focusing on the mid delt. I'm not focusing on my grip. If I'm focusing on my grip, I'm doing things like wrist curls and extensions or farmer carries or, you know, things like that. That's training my grip. I'm not training my grip when I'm doing lateral raises. I don't want to think about my grip. I want to focus primarily on the mid delt. So I don't see an issue with that. If you have an issue with cuffs, then you probably also have an issue with doing leg extensions and using the pad around your legs, right? It's the same concept. You're just using a tool to help you get the most out of the movement efficiently. I don't know. And rant. All right. Maybe those were a little ugly. I think they're okay. Roughly 10. You know, after being sick, it's like speaking of limiting factor, my limiting factor is my breathing. You know, I get tired quickly in terms of my lungs. All right, we're gonna go heavier on this last set. 50s. Now, the gym is kind of quiet right now, and I'm gonna be that guy where I store 2 other sets of dumbbells near me. It's gonna be ridiculous, but we're gonna do 50s. And then I think we're gonna drop to 30 and then drop to 20. There's no rules when it comes to the drop sets. I don't really care. Point is just to execute good form on those second and third drops and focus on just driving as much blood into the muscle as possible. So what I say, 30s and 20s. 20s. Like blind. All right. Probably lost a little bit of weight being sick. Looks like we're going into a cut anyways. No more bulking, which is good. This can come down. I want to try to get 8 quality reps for the 50s. And by quality, I just mean consistent reps. I'm really trying to focus on controlling that negative. So it may not translate to the camera properly, but I am really trying to fight that negative and that eccentric, really trying to slow it down as much as possible. Because this is heavier though, it is going to be really hard. So as long as my reps are consistent, a little bit of body English is completely fine. Like I mentioned earlier, you can move through the movement. You don't have to be so robotic. But control is number 1. So as long as you're controlling the weight and the weight's not controlling you, you're fine. Okay, that's heavy as shit. Probably a little sloppy. That's okay. Okay, fuck. Okay. I realized I didn't go through the form. You guys know how to do them. You're on your own for that one. Okay, we're doing bicep curls now, dumbbells. Now, I've used this so many times in the past. I love this when it comes to bicep training, mainly for me because my right shoulder is always less stable. So I need something to brace against. For whatever reason, it's just lack stability. And I don't feel a good contraction or connection in my bicep as much as I do in my left due to that lack of stability. So by having something to brace against, I can drive my arms into this pad as I curl. So I'm treating this similar to like if you were to do like a hamstring curl, right? You're driving your knees and your quads into that pad as you pull your calves up towards your hamstrings. The exact same concept here for the biceps, driving my tricep into this pad as I bring my forearm to my bicep. We're just gonna do regular supinated for these. I'm gonna start with double arm, and then as we get heavier, I'll probably just switch to single arm, we'll see. But we're doing 3 working sets. This set is gonna act more as a warm up. Now I'm purposely kind of externally rotated outward. It just feels comfortable on my shoulder. If I'm too internally rotated when I'm curling, like coming in like this is very extreme, but having my hands come in, it just kind of hurts my shoulder. So I'm purposely having hands more out, curling almost wide. That was a warm up, but that was a failure. We got 3 more sets there. Yeah, so in terms of my split, the reason I changed things up, I was doing push-pull legs, actually push legs pull, push legs pull, times 6 times a week. And I just switched it up because I was getting bored, switching up to break up the monotony. I've been doing push-pull legs for so long. But when I traveled, obviously when you're traveling, you don't have access to all the things that you normally do and your schedule's all over the place. So I actually just did a chest and back day on one of the days I was there. And I ended up really liking it. So I kind of am sticking to that because I just prefer it lately. I don't know, tried it. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna switch up my split. So now I'm doing chest back, legs, and then shoulders and arms, chest back, legs, mainly structured for 5 times a week. Because it's summer, because, well, summer's coming, and because the weather's getting nicer, I don't want to spend 6 days a week in the gym. And I want to actually give myself a bit more rest anyways. So I'm going to try 5 days a week, but then the odd week I might throw in a 6th day, which will give you a second shoulders and arms day. But I might even change it up a little bit more, maybe reduce some of the chest and back exercises, and then throw in a bit of extra arms and maybe some mid delts like I was talking about, just to kind of amp up the frequency for those muscles. So first working set, 8 to 10 to failure. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna go heavier. We're gonna jump up to 50s. Still double arm. I think also on the last set, we're gonna do a mechanical drop set. So that's why I left those lighter weights here, because on the third and final set, I'm gonna do obviously as many as I can in a supinated position. And then I'm gonna drop those weights, go lighter, but then do more of a hammer curl. Just to do more of a mechanical drop set and also a weight drop because I'm dropping the weight, but changing the mechanics too. Oh man. Last set. We're gonna do a drop set now. Regular, supinated, 6 to 8 failure, and then hammers lighter. Same thing, 6 to 8 or more, just a failure. Oh fuck, that's it. Oh fuck, that's it. Okay. Normally on my shoulder and arm days, I like switching, as you've seen, alternating between each sort of muscle group. But I'm actually programming these today anyways, creature curls on the angled. So I'm just gonna do 2 biceps back to back. So this is actually gonna be the last bicep exercise. I'm saving it specifically for the end because of this angled pad. The resistance profile of this movement, I'm actually targeting the biceps when they're in a more lengthened state. So in other words, in short, I'm loading primarily the beginning range of this movement when the biceps stretched. The reason I'm programming it is because it complements what I just did with the biceps, where just a regular upright standing conventional bicep curl, you're gonna be loading primarily that mid-range of the actual movement, especially with your arm at your side. So this, because I'm leaning more forward, my elbow is higher up actually. So I'm actually in what's called shoulder flexion. So yes, I'm gonna be able to shorten the bicep a bit more because of this position, but I'm loading primarily this beginning lengthened range of the movement. So in other words, I have a lot more load underneath the bicep when it is in this stretched position, when my forearm is parallel with the ground. So that's why. We got 3 working sets here. Again, to failure. This is just working set number 1. We don't need to do a warm up. We are pretty warmed up anyways. But I'm focused on full range, coming all the way down, getting that deep stretch, and then driving up, squeezing. Okay. Now we are going to move pretty quick on these. Okay. Oh man. Another tip I've mentioned in the past, when you're doing isolateral movements, it's definitely okay to take a long rest time in between each arm, or each leg rather, depending on what you're training. But because 1, for the sake of time and battery life, I'm trying to get through this, but 2, my right arm is significantly weaker and smaller actually by like 1/4 of an inch than my left. So I want to give more attention to my right arm. So I'm actually starting with my right arm, and then I'm immediately going into my left arm with minimal rest, and then I'm resting. So I'm almost giving myself more energy to focus primarily on my weaker side, and then giving very little rest time and energy to focus on my my stronger side. And then in terms of rep range, I'm literally just trying to get this to failure. And then my left side, I'm just trying to match it. So if I can actually do more on my left, I probably won't, even though I'm going to be tired anyways, and it's actually giving out roughly the same time. So that's my thought process when I'm doing this. So again, if you have a weaker arm, start with the weaker side first, and give your left side or your dominant side no rest time. Oh, okay. Okay. So I am failing roughly around 8, which is good. You know, besides being sick, I feel pretty damn good. I'm leaning out, which is nice. A nice little tan, maybe. No, hey, obviously with the weather getting better, it definitely makes everyone's mood a lot better, especially in Canada. Final set, and then we're finishing off with some triceps. We'll see, probably some kickbacks on the cables. Okay. Full stretch all the way. Driving this tricep into this pad. Whew. Focus on bringing my forearm to my bicep. That's it. And I'm exploding out of the bottom. Coming down, creating that tension, and then exploding out. Okay. Oh. Dude. That's it. All right, moving on. All right, guys, this is gonna be the final exercise that we're doing today. Is just a cable tricep kickback. Now, for the sake of time, the battery is literally on its last leg. So I'm just gonna quickly run through the setup and the form, and then that's gonna be it for the video. Now, here, actually, we'll show you on this side. So on my left side, it's my better side. You're gonna adjust this pulley to whatever height that's comfortable for you. Just know one thing, the higher the pulley is, the more that beginning or starting range you're going to be focusing on. The lower this pulley is, and the more you're actually going to be emulating more of a traditional dumbbell tricep kickback, where primarily the range that's loaded is going to be in this end range here. or at full lockout. So I like to kind of have it somewhere within this mid-range because I want to target more of the mid-range. It's going to give me much more of a broad range of motion to work through. So in other words, the extremes in the lengthened, the beginning, or at the very end are not going to be as heavy with the resistance. It's going to be a little bit easier. And all that load is going to be primarily to the mid-range, which is actually a great thing because that's where we're going to be our most strongest. So I'll show you what I mean. Whenever this cable is at 90 degrees with your wrist, that's going to be the heaviest part of the movement. So in other words, if I stand here, right here, this is going to be primarily the heaviest part of the movement. The minute that my arm gets closer to my torso, or this cable gets in line with this arm, resistance drops off. And then same thing, as this cable gets closer to my body, the resistance drops off. So with this cable kickback, if I'm tucked back here, I'm extending my shoulder as far back as I can behind my body. I'm even slightly turning into the working side because that's what's natural to me. And the reason that is because the triceps do work best when you're extending away from the midline of your body. So naturally, it feels better. I'm leaning slightly into it. I'm extending this arm as far back. And then as I extend my forearm back, this is going to be the heaviest part of the movement right here when this cable is at 90 degrees with my wrist. So I'm purposely loading this part of the range. And then as I get to this lockout where I'm weaker, this is going to be the weakest part of the movement. Or sorry, this is going to be where the resistance tends to drop off. So I'm actually going to be weakest when my triceps shortest, and I'm also weaker when my triceps lengthen. In short, I'm purposely loading that mid-range. So it's going to look like this. I'm leaning into that working arm, extending the shoulder as far back as possible, keeping it locked and stable the entire time, and then extending back. And if you notice too, I'm actually leaning away from this cable stack on purpose. I'm hanging off of it. That's going to put more of my center of mass towards that ground, keep myself stable longer because this cable is pulling me up. If I'm upright, it's going to be pulling me forward. So. Okay. Anyways, that's it. We got 1% left on that battery. I'm going to do an outro. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, you guys are a real one. I appreciate you so much. And as always, continue to work hard, continue to be diligent, be intentional with your movements, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.